I'm Murray Newlands from Open Future Forum.
Why isn't OAuth enough to secure AI agents? Let me be careful with the framing because the honest answer is not that OAuth is wrong. OAuth is the right foundation for delegated access, and you should keep using it. The point is that OAuth was built to let a human approve an app once, and an agent is not a human and does not act once. So OAuth is necessary, and it is not sufficient on its own. The gaps it leaves are where the risk lives. I'm Murray Newlands, partner at IAC Ventures and founder of Open Future Forum, which runs small, off-the-record dinners for CFOs, CROs, CISOs, and CTOs in Silicon Valley. 100 events to date. This comes up whenever I sit with security leaders. Their engineers say the agent uses OAuth, so it is fine. The security leader has a feeling it is not the whole story, but cannot always say why. Let me say why. First, give OAuth its due, because the next layer builds on it rather than replacing it. OAuth solved a real problem for the web. You wanted to let an application read your calendar without handing over your password. So you click approve, the app gets a token, and the token carries scopes, claims about who approved it, and an audience that says which service it is for. Those are exactly the right primitives, and agent security still uses every one of them. The issue is not the primitives. It is that agents break 3 assumptions OAuth was designed around. The first assumption is that a person is in the loop at the moment of action. With OAuth, the human approves and then uses the app, watching it. An agent acts on its own thousands of times, long after any human approved anything. The consent happened once. The actions never stop. The approval is a single event in the past. The behavior is a stream that continues without supervision. The control you clicked has no bearing on the 10,000th action. The second assumption is that scopes are precise enough. OAuth scopes are deliberately broad. Read your mail, send mail, manage files. For a human clicking buttons, broad scopes are tolerable because the human decides what to actually do. For an agent, broad scopes are a loaded weapon. An agent granted send mail can send 10,000 emails. An agent granted manage files can delete all of them. The scope said yes. Nobody meant that. So you keep the scope and you add a finer check on top that decides what this agent on this request is actually allowed to do. The third assumption is that identity equals the user. OAuth ties the token to the person who approved it, but an agent acting on behalf of a user is not the user. If the agent does something wrong, the logs show the user did it. You have lost the distinction between the human and the agent acting in their name, which is the exact distinction you need during an investigation. When an auditor asks who took an action, your honest answer is that you cannot fully tell, and that is not an answer anyone wants to give. There is a second identity problem underneath the first. One agent often acts for many users over a single day. The support agent handles your ticket, then mine, then 1,000 others. If that agent carries one broad identity, it can see across all of those people, which means a single confused step can expose one user's data to another. What you want is for the agent to take on the permissions of whoever it is serving at that moment, and only those. That is delegated identity. The agent is not a fixed actor with standing access. It is a stand-in for a specific person on a specific request, bounded by what that person is allowed to see. OAuth gives you the token. You still have to build the per request boundary on top of it. There is a further problem, and it is the one to watch. Agents hallucinate permissions. An agent will sometimes act as though it has access it was never granted because the model reasoned its way into believing the action was allowed. It is confident. It is wrong. Picture a support agent that decides the fastest way to resolve a ticket is to issue a refund and proceeds as if refunds are within its rights, when no one ever granted that. OAuth checks the token, not the agent's belief about the token, so you need a layer that enforces the real permission at the moment of action, regardless of what the agent thinks it can do. So OAuth is the front door, and a good one. What does the rest of the house look like? 4 things, all built on top of the OAuth you already run. 1. Per agent identity. Each agent gets its own identity, separate from the user and from every other agent. When something happens, you know which agent did it. 2. Least privilege authorization enforced at runtime. Not broad scopes approved once, but narrow permissions checked every time the agent tries to act. If the sales agent tries to delete records, the layer blocks it. because deletion was never in its grant, no matter what the model believed. The check happens at the moment of action, which is the only moment that actually matters for an agent. 3. Manage credentials. The agent never holds the raw secret. The credential lives in a controlled layer that issues access, traces every use, and can revoke it in one step. 4. Human-in-the-loop approval gates for high-risk and irreversible actions. Some actions should never run on the agent's confidence alone. The important detail is that the gate has to give the human reviewer real context. What data is being shared, what the action will do, what it touches. A gate that shows only approve or deny is a rubber stamp, and a rubber stamp is not oversight. The reviewer needs enough to meaningfully say no. This is what Agentic Fabric does, a company I advise. They are the identity and permissioning layer for AI agents, the Okta for agents model. Agents route through the layer enforces what each agent can do for each user at runtime, and it holds the credentials so the agent never stores secrets directly. It integrates with the OAuth and identity providers you already run, so you are adding a control point, not ripping anything out. They tell me over 500 agents run through it now. They are backed by Y Combinator and built by a team out of MIT. Here is the practical instruction. Keep OAuth. Treat it as the front door, not the finish line. Behind it, add per-agent identity, authorization enforced at runtime, credentials held outside the agent, and approval gates with real context for the actions that matter. If your team says the agent uses OAuth so it is secure, the right follow-up is simple. Can you revoke that one agent's access in one step without breaking anything else? And can you prove what it did? If the answer is no, OAuth was doing its job and you had not finished the rest. OAuth is the correct foundation for agents, and it is not sufficient by itself because it approves access once for a human while an agent acts unattended with broad scopes and an imperfect sense of its own permissions. The answer is to keep OAuth and add per-agent identity, least privilege authorization enforced at runtime, credentials the agent never holds, and human approval gates with enough context to mean something. Open Future Forum is a private executive community in Silicon Valley that runs small off-the-record dinners for C-suite executives. Over 400 events since 2021, bringing together senior executives, founders, and investors. If you want to be considered for an Open Future Forum dinner, find me on LinkedIn. If you want to sponsor one, the same applies. I'm Murray Newlands from Open Future Forum. See you in the next briefing.